So, you want to be a good teacher. Well, there's some things that you can do to be a good teacher when you are a professor, but the thing is, it starts with realizing teaching is crazy, okay? If you want to be a great teacher, you got to think a little bit crazy. And I'm not saying be crazy. I'm using one of those great acronyms we like to use. And the thing is, when I say we have to be crazy, I want you to think about this. C, care for your students. Okay, that's the first thing. Second, use real-world examples that relate to your students. That's going to help them learn. 3, talk about actual experiences, whether it's from your own professional life or if you don't have that experience, find people that do and bring those actual experiences in to grow the experience in your classroom. The Z part, it's about the zeal. Have energy, have excitement for your teaching. That will excite your students and get them to want to learn. And Y is the U. You create that ecosystem, you create the tone, you set the tone in those classes to set things up. And realize sometimes the class isn't about you, it's about them, okay? So today's video is gonna help you figure out how you can become a better educator and a better teacher for your students. Because I know, I'm a professor myself. And I know that sometimes with being a professor means that teaching isn't on the top of your list. Sometimes it's like, look, I got to get my research done, right? I've got to get my 10A journals done in 4 years so I can get tenure. And then I got the committee work so I can get to full. And then you have all this stuff that's piled on and piled on and piled on. And for a lot of professors, the thing that they drop out is their teaching. But the thing is, those students out there that sit in those seats, they're the reason why we're here. Okay, they're the ones that fill up these halls. They're the education we're trying to pass on. And so you really need to think about things that you can do to become a better teacher. Okay, and so that's why I did come up with this crazy system of being a better teacher. So let's go through it. Now the C, like I said, starts for care for the students. Now, what does it mean caring for your students? Well, part of it means speak with your students, listen to your students. And the thing is, a lot of those students that sit out there, they're scared to talk to their professor. I mean, think about it. Everything they do is through email or through text message and stuff like that. It's a technology thing. So going to see a professor is kind of difficult for them. So you need to make the point to make it feel more welcoming for them to come talk to you. Let them know that you care, because if you care about your students, it will actually show. I know for me, I care. I tell my students I love y'all because I do. They make me want to come to work every day because I see them grow and it really inspires me. But the thing is, to help you care for those students, think about them, not just where they are today, but where they're going to be in the future and how you can get to that point. So what are their main career goals they need to talk about? Or what are the main issues they need to focus on to get there? Talk about those things, show that you care about them. And another thing is understand the issues that they're facing. I mean, the students are facing huge student loan debts, a lot of depression, social media addiction, and just, you know, someone might something bad about them. You have all these pressures out there for the students trying to get a job that's out there, that it's good to know when are the busy seasons for them, when is the career fairs, when are the midterm times, so you can adjust your teaching to help them, because it shows that you care, because you know. And the thing is, sometimes it's just making the little things available for them. Maybe it's, hey, you know what, I have office hours at this time, but if you want to set up a time, just send me an email, we can set a time. Or I'll stay after class each day if you have questions. These little things that you can do can really make a big difference to show your students that you care. Because when they know that you care, they care more about your class, and you can become a much more effective educator in that sense. Now the R we have deals with real-world examples. So students need to have real-world examples that actually relate and are integrated from their lives. I mean, don't get me wrong, the aluminum industry is fantastic, but is that really going to help your 19-year-old college student to understand supply chain? Might it be better to talk about their coffee, where their coffee came from and all those steps, or their iPhone, where it all came from and all those steps? You want to make sure you're using these examples that really relate to the things your students are really kind of in with or into. That's why it's always important, going back to caring with the students, talking to them, seeing what matters to them. Is Patagonia their favorite company? Why is that? Let's use those examples. Also, if you're in a classroom that's smaller, giving the real world examples of team projects, you need to explain to them there's pluses and minuses for it. I know every student will tell you, if we got a group of 5, there's one person that's a real leader, 2 people do stuff, the last one does something and this person does nothing. Well, the thing is, you tell them, like, look, this is kind of how the real world works. This is a real world example. You have to deal with the strife and the mistakes and the issues of dealing with a team. And that helps them develop better. And you let them understand that and you let them learn that by using these real world examples and real world situations that they face in the future. That's why if you can do experiential learning or action learning, like I have my students, they actually work with real companies to give that experience like, oh, now I understand. Because you give them that, it's more than just memorizing a definition. They're seeing how the education you're giving them works in the real world. Now, the A part of this crazy model is actual experience. Look, if you have actual experience in your field, make sure you're bringing this up. Make sure you're talking about that. Talk about your experiences dealing with those customers or building those buildings or whatever. Talk about those issues, the good and the bad, because one thing is that builds up your kind of perception in their mind that, hey, you really are an expert. You actually do know these things. You've actually worked in this field, and that's really going to help you out in terms of relating to them and for them to relate to you and to the subject overall, which is really great. But I realize a lot of professors don't necessarily have a lot of actual experience in the business world or in these areas. They've been in academia. They've gone from bachelor's to master's to PhD to teaching, and sometimes you don't always have the industry expertise, like hands-on expertise that you'd want, and that's okay. That's why what I suggest you do is bring in outsiders. If you can have guest speakers come, you'd be surprised. The development office at your school will probably have a list of donors or companies that like to come talk and stuff like that, and you can bring them in. Heck, I bring in my old students that took my classes. I have them come in. Tell my students what it's like to work in marketing. Come and tell them a new product development. Tell them what it's like to work at Disney or Under Armour or Discover or Budweiser. You bring those people in to bring in those real, actual experiences. It really makes it much more alive for the students, because if all you're doing is a case study, it's a case study on Nike, and then it's a case study on Disneyland Paris, and then it's a case study on this, all they're getting is the reading and not the experience side of it. So make sure, if you got actual experiences, either yourself or your university can bring it in, or the alumni, your students, use that to make your class a better class, and that's going to make it much more impactful for them. Next, we have the Z, and that is Zeal. You've got to be enthusiastic about your topic, your students, your lectures, your slides, your discussions, your presentations, because if you come in there and you're bored, and you're boring, and you're bored with your own topic, what's it going to look like for them? Because I know there is nobody in this world that likes to sit through a boring lecture. And hey, look, I'm a PhD too. I've had to sit through some boring lectures in my life, and I made sure. I remember my Professor Maug, and I remember my Comica, and I remember, my professors I've had. I'm like, look, I like them. They really inspired me. They brought something extra to that class because they cared about it. They had a lot of oomph in there, and you got to have that, because if you come in, and I remember I had teachers in calculus, and they literally came in, turned to the board, talked to the board the entire class, and did calculus. Half the class fell asleep. That is not what you got to do. You got to be enthusiastic about your subject. And one of the things that's really great is if you're at a college or a university or a junior college or wherever, you have students that want to learn. You have students that are intelligent, that are smart, and they're going to ask you questions, and they're going to inspire you to want to do more. So once you talk to these students and you learn about their journeys, it gives you more excitement in order to have more zeal. Put more effort into those slides. Put more effort into that presentation. Go that extra mile to do things. Now, I'm not saying have a meme on every single slide you put up there or have a joke with every single topic, but it means putting your effort into it, because you're really the important person here, because you're the one that's going to be putting that effort in there, that's going to get that information out to them. And that's why the why in there is you. You're the expert. You know the topic. You're the one educating them. And you got to realize that you control the environment. You control the tone of the class. It's about you. If you come in and you set it as a boring blah, blah, blah lecture, it's going to be a boring blah, blah lecture. If you come in there with energy, it's going to be a more energetic lecture. I've taught boring subjects. I've taught fun subjects. And the thing is, it's the attitude that you have. And the thing is, what you got to realize is if you're a typical college professor, you are 1/40th of your student's college experience. Okay, you're one of the 40 classes they have to take to graduate. But you can make 100% difference in their lives if you teach them a way that inspires them. I've had students who have come to my classroom and they've come to my office hours and say, Mark, I want to change my major to marketing. I mean, you really showed me what it's really about, what it's for, and why it's right for me. And that's a great feeling to have because you help inspire them. And the thing is, it could be you're teaching writing. It could be teaching math. It could be teaching business. It could be teaching, history, whatever. There's things out there that you bring to the table, that you really make the difference in these students' lives, and it helps inspire you. So don't forget, you are important too in this whole thing. And if you're ever worried, realize that you are an expert in this area. That's why you're teaching it. But remember, for you, it's going to be different because I teach in this classroom. Okay, 600 some odd students will be here, and it's a very different setup than when I'm my small class of 50 or 60 students. My 50 or 60 students, there's in-depth questions about every little minute little thing, whereas when I have this big class like this, nobody asks a question. So I have to make sure that I am doing my part to read my students and see when they understand and when they don't understand, so I can make sure they get a better educational experience when they're here. And the thing is, if you're not sure where to start, I'm sure the university or the college that you're teaching at has all kinds of programs to help people become better teachers. They might have a teaching academy that's there. If you look online, we have plenty of videos on teaching, and there's so many resources out there that you can find that can actually help you. And one of the things I like to do is I actually go watch other faculty that I've heard have been good teachers. Like students have come up to me like, oh, that Michael Freaky guy, he's a really good teacher. I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm going to go to that business law class. I'm going to sit in there and watch that lecture and learn from him. And so you do those things so you can learn from them. And the thing is, there's a lot of things out there that can help you as a teacher, but also can help your students as well. So make sure you use as much of these kind of resources that are out there to help you become a better teacher, but more importantly, for you to help educate your students better. Because if you're doing that, you're being a great teacher right there. So I wish you luck in your career in being a professor and teaching, because it's not just research and service being a professor. It's educating the minds that sit in these seats to become the great leaders that we want to have in the future. So I wish you well, and I'll say bye from here in the classroom.